everybody. Welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. It's me, Francis, and Nate. Nate, I hear that England has reverted back to its natural state, and it's just raining there again. So congratulations. Everything is back as it should be. The country that you stay in is depressing as fuck again. But so is St. Louis. But you know, our rain is nice. Our rain is fun. It waters my garden. I imagine, like, every time it rains in England, I just imagine some kind of Charles Dickens situation where there's just a bunch of, like, orphans running around and chimney sweeps and whatnot. Like, basically everything that I know about England comes from Mary Poppins.
Yeah, that's a little out of date. Not gonna lie there. It has stopped raining, but it was actually legit coming down for about an hour there. And I'll be honest with you, that is the first significant rain, like not just a couple of droplets here and there, that we have had since May. This is the driest I have ever seen it be, and I gotta be honest with you, it reminds me of New Mexico in some ways. Like when I go out running in the park, running on dirt trails that are fully just dust at this point, and all the plants are like white, just not alive at all. Yeah, it reminds me of New Mexico, which is just very strange. This is supposedly, they're saying this is the driest summer since 1935, and in Europe in general this is the driest summer in like 500 years. I'm sure climate change has nothing to do with that.
There's a lot of rivers that are disappearing right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, Alice has talked about this on Trash Future, but it was recently in the news too, that like in a bunch of riverbanks, specifically on the Rhine, but on a lot of other rivers in Central Europe, they have these things called famine stones or hunger stones. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, where people would carve messages basically like, if the water is below this line, you're pretty fucked right now. And in like the Czech Republic, what's now the Czech Republic, in all of the sort of German-speaking areas of Europe, this was the thing, kind of German humor, I suppose. We don't have a similar thing, but 8 of 14 of the sort of statistical regions of England and Wales have been declared drought zones. And it's very funny. We have a desalination plant on the Thames River, but it doesn't work. They've never been able to make it work. It's been mothballed since 2010. It runs on biodiesel. And apparently the reason it doesn't work is that they haven't, when they built it, they didn't factor in that the Thames estuary has different levels of salinity based on the tides. And it's like, people have been living on this river for 4,000 fucking years. Did you not identify that there's a thing called the tide and it affects whether the water is salty or fresh?
Right. Nobody's like, tastes a little saltier today because it's a little higher.
Because it's a river that empties into the ocean. Yeah. It's very, very fun. I mean, if it wasn't distressing, given how unprepared this country is to deal with climate change, it would be very, very funny.
Well, America doesn't have hunger stones. I don't know if the native population before the Europeans showed up, had that kind of time or effort. I don't know if they really did. If there's a lot of rock I guess there were, but not. It seems very German to just be like, well, I guess I'll go carve into the rock. Like, if you see this again, you're fucked, guys, and just like chuck it into the river. But what we are getting is a lot of dead bodies in Lake Mead that are suddenly turning up. So a lot of people who are like, just dump them in Lake Mead. You'll never see them again. Oh boy, then you weren't expecting us to bake this earth for the last 45 years so that your crimes are suddenly uncovered.
Yeah, I noticed that they found a guy in an oil drum that was filled with concrete. And when they removed, the forensics broke into it, he was wearing like shoes and pants and a plaid shirt that were all from Kmart from like 1979. So it kind of narrowed down what era in which this guy was probably killed by the mob and buried in Lake Mead.
I just imagine like the old, like the forensic guys are breaking it open and it's just like, we've got to figure this out. We don't know when this guy came from. And then there's just like the old Columbo kind of guy comes in chomping on a stogie. He's like, that's a Kmart blue light special from the 1980s. My parents bought me that once upon a time. You find your killer back then, boys.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we were off the case. It was a cold murder, but Columbo showed up and was like, Well, that's a one-off Debbie Boone 8-track cassette that they only sold at fucking Kmart. So yeah, now we know how to we figure out this guy was a huge loser and he liked Debbie Boone. I don't really know where else to go with that.
It buried him with his favorite comic books from the 1980s.
Yeah,
I'm glad that all of these that there's the water receding has come up with has shown us a lot of really interesting stuff. And of course, it's dumping water everywhere else. We just had like massive flooding in St. Louis, like which is not like uncommon because like we live next to the Mississippi River. It's usually flooding, but it floods because it's been steadily raining for months up north and on St. Louis, and the flood levels like come up gradually and not like, oh, we got 8 inches of rain in less than 6 hours. And all of our tributaries into the Mississippi River are swollen and flooded and going all over the place. But the Mississippi River is down so far that it just sucked it all down and it was perfectly fine. Like it sucked for like that couple of days when the water didn't have anywhere to go. But once it kind of sorted itself out, everywhere else is so dry that it's like, yeah, we'll take up. The Mississippi River is perfectly fine. That's when most of our flooding is a problem, is when the Mississippi is really high and all the water has nowhere to go. But this time it did. It had washed all of our trash right on down to Louisiana where it belongs.
yeah. I mean, so there was a map that was recently shared on social media, or rather, a satellite photo, and it showed that basically Wales, a tiny corner of the northeast of England, and most of Scotland, Northern Ireland, pretty much all the island of Ireland were green, but everything else was fully brown. And that is just because, yeah, we're having such a dry summer and at a relatively dry spring. And the thing about it is, like, I did a bunch of research about this I had to host an episode of Trash Future while Riley's in Canada. And it was just kind of remarkable to me that, the UK went so full gung-ho on privatizing everything. And that desalination plant that doesn't work is basically among the only bits of water infrastructure that would add any capacity that's been built since they privatized the water board in 1989. They haven't built any new reservoirs. They haven't really increased transmission capacity. The fact that they lose about 20% of all water usage daily to just leaky pipes across the network is a perennial problem they've never fixed. But they are leveraging a ton of debt, basically having all of the private companies take on debt, paying for it by charging people more, and then paying out bonuses and shareholder dividends. So it's one big scam where shit never gets better. Prices go up, service stays the same or gets worse, and folks at the top rake the benefits from it. And in a way, I don't know. It all kind of operates on the assumption that nothing will ever get worse, that nothing will ever force their hand. You know what I mean? That like, oh, well, it'll always be rainy in England. There will always be water. We'll never have to do anything. Like, we don't really have to improve anything. It's a wet country. It's temperate. We're fine. Whatever. Just blow all this on fucking cocaine and hookers and dividends and bonuses. And then like something actually happens and it makes you realize how unprepared this country is, because the climate can change and seems like it will. And, the big fear in this part of Europe is that if the Gulf Stream stops, the sort of underwater conveyor that moves warm air from the central Atlantic, from the Caribbean upwards towards, this part of Northern Europe, and therefore makes the weather just warmer, it is more statistically likely in terms of latitude, call it that Paris should have a climate like fucking Bismarck, North Dakota, which it's on the same latitude as. But it doesn't. Paris is warm. It doesn't get really cold in winter. It does now get hotter in summer, but even then, like, it doesn't get North Dakota hot in summer on a regular basis. You know what I mean?
Maybe that's how we counterbalance global warming, as we stop the Gulf Stream and just balance it. I mean, America's fucked, but Europe can at least balance itself.
Well, I mean,
out.
if Britain had a Norway climate, this country would fall apart. Like, the houses aren't built to handle those temperatures. Like, Norway doesn't get super hot in the summer, although it can get as hot as it has been getting here. But in the winter, it's way colder and way snowier. And like, most houses in Britain do not really have the degree of anti-pipe freezing protection that houses built in North America do. And so, yeah, like, if things actually change here, like you're seeing it now, stuff getting drier, they're freaking out, they don't know what to do. Like, You have to have the fighting over whether or not they're going to do hose pipe bans for people to ban watering their lawns, ban washing their cars. Like, how will they actually enforce it? Like, will people actually respond to it? All this stuff. They're completely unprepared for it. And it's like, this is just a taste. Like, the heat waves we've been having have been relatively short. I made this comment, elsewhere. In Australia, when they have hot periods like this where it's, above 100 Fahrenheit or above 38 centigrade, that'll last for fucking weeks, weeks long of 40 plus every day, or that's like 104. This country would fully shut down. Like, stuff, you wouldn't be able to get the essentials for life because nothing would be working. Like, power cuts would be happening, rails wouldn't be able to run, they'd run out of fuel, like, they wouldn't be able to do food delivery, like, all this stuff would become, like, completely atrophied really, really quickly. That's not a, sci-fi doomsday scenario. It's already happening. It's just not happening at the requisite length to create full chaos. And the response from this country's government is just basically like, well, it sucked in 1976 when it was hot, so we're fine.
Yeah, you just got to stiff upper lip it, right? You got to keep calm and carry on. And what other any other World War II era propaganda posters? Look, Nate, is this as bad as the Blitz? Probably not. So get over yourself.
Well, the thing that's so funny about the Blitz is that the Blitz was a fucking disaster. Like, the government didn't, like, the biggest thing about the Blitz is people love to say, the solidarity that, people were taking shelter in the tubes, like the tube tunnels, because, but the thing about it is, that wasn't government policy. In fact, they blocked entrances to tube stations. They wouldn't let people in. They had to bum rush them and force their way in because the government said that's going to make people think they need to panic. No, you should just black out your windows and take shelter in your homes. And people's response was, we're getting fucking murdered in our homes. No.
We're getting bombed, dude.
Like, they're dropping bombs regardless. And so the two big things that I feel like I really wish people understood about this country and that sort of false imagined narrative about, like, the heroism of World War II. Number one is that more people in the ruling class than not were pro-Nazi. That is the big one. Like, British liberals in general and Tories in particular fucking loved Hitler. They absolutely loved Hitler. And in retrospect, it's difficult for them to admit that, so they had to kind of scrub all that stuff from the archives. But, like, if you find any, upper class lord, life peer of the Liberal Party or the Conservative Party, chances are extraordinarily good that that person was pro-Hitler. And the specific reason was they wanted someone like Hitler to destroy unions and discipline the workforce in Britain and put people in their place. Like, nothing made them happier than the idea of, of just basically taking, having troops in the street shooting people who were striking so that they got back to work and did what they were told. Like, nothing could be more British than that.
I mean, that's where America probably got a lot of its just shoot the striking workers and we'll be fine kind of attitude as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, because that's what they did in the fucking colonies, like.
That's what they did. I mean, that's what they did to the coal miners. Like, British coal miners, American coal miners. Somebody was always, saying, "Hey, we deserve better pay and a better situation here." And then the bosses are like, "That's cool. I'm going to get the cops to shoot you in the face now."
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, the second thing I would point out about Britain is that all of the things that get touted as like, wow, isn't this such a heroic thing, like the Blitz and, the people's sort of community responses to the Blitz, the evacuation of Dunkirk, things along those lines. Those were all instances of regular people having to, in solidarity with one another, react and solve a problem because the government was too fucking incompetent to do anything itself. Like, the government fucked something and then a bunch of regular people, to quote my friend and co-host Milo Edwards regarding Dunkirk, the government got bailed out by a bunch of blokes who fish because they couldn't do it on their own because they had fucked it so badly.
Every one of these, like, heroic epics that we watch, and it's so great, it's because somebody fucked up somewhere, and then the Dunkirk lift have to happen. Or, I mean, shit, a year on now, Afghanistan, the Afghanistan evacuation. There's always something that somebody fucked up something somewhere, and now it's a fucking disaster. I mean,
I would say also that, we're staring down the barrel of a huge cost of living crisis, and they're looking at potentially having to institute power cuts this winter. I could go on for a long time about the problems in Britain, but my experience in this country is that until it is an absolute screaming crisis, everyone will basically either put their head in the sand about it or call you, a whining ninny, a neurotic idiot for bringing up that there's a problem. Like, they'll just basically try to bluster their way through it, like, oh, well, surely you're exaggerating kind of shit. And then when it does happen and it completely falls the fuck apart, it's just sort of like, oh, well, nobody could have predicted this would happen. And it's like, day in and day out, man. That's how they are. So whatever is going to happen in these next few months and what's ever going to happen in the coming years with climate change, I assure you it won't be anything unforeseen. It's just everyone will have, heard the keys jingling and fucking played dumb like a good boy. And it drives me out of my goddamn mind. This country is insane.
Just remember, kids, rich people aren't really people. You don't have to care. Like, once everything falls apart, that's just good eating right there. Though I don't know about Bezos. He looks real like he's got too much divorce guy energy.
Bezos is interesting because he's gone from being the sort of spindly bald nerd to just being like a horror story of human growth hormone. Like, he makes Kumail Nanjiani look normal by comparison. And I don't necessarily think you'd want to eat that because, like, imagine how gamey and tough the meat on someone would be when, like, it's fully, like, it's the opposite of Kobe beef, you know what I mean? It's fully created with, like, steroids and, like, insane machines to grow your biceps while you're sleeping.
Yeah, but the blood is like all fresh blood from like 14-year-olds. So like maybe that helps it out. The thing I don't like about Bezos is he looks too much like Howie Mandel, and that throws me off because I like Howie Mandel. Howie Mandel's never done anything. Well, I'm not going to say he's never done anything wrong. I'm sure.
Is Howie Mandel shredded now too?
I don't know. I mean, he's a guy. He's in his mid-60s. So,
well, have you seen Danny Elfman?
Seen who?
Danny Elfman. The composer, the guy from Oingo Boingo. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about? Like, okay, yeah. As of like 2006, I remember seeing pictures of Danny Elfman at the Oscars, right? And at that point, he would have been like in his late 40s, early 50s, I think. Maybe even older than that. And he just looked like, redheaded Jewish guy. Yeah, a little pasty, a little spindly, a little paunchy here and there. I know nothing about that.
I was going to say, are you feeling a little jealous of Danny Elfman here?
No. So he just looked like, your garden variety redheaded Jewish guy in his 50s, So what I have to look forward to in about 15 years. Bro, please do me a favor.
Okay.
Open up a browser right now.
All right.
And Google image search the following. You ready?
I'm ready. Go ahead.
Danny Elfman, Coachella 2022.
Oh, look, it comes up ready to go. It's like, oh, I know what you want to look at. So I'm looking at, let's see. What the fuck?
Dude.
How old is this guy?
He's in his 70s now.
He looks like he looks like that one goofy
He looks like the lead singer of Buckcherry got into powerlifting.
Who's that other goofy looking redhead that everybody
Carrot
that
Top
does music? No, that does music.
Does music? Not Ed Sheeran.
Yeah, Ed Sheeran. He looks a little bit like Ed Sheeran.
But he are you seeing how insanely jacked he is now?
Oh, he is. Like, absolutely.
I don't think Ed Sheeran's that jacked unless he's gone through like a fitness,
I'm just going by all the goofy tattoos and the really long hair. Hey, you know what? Good for him. 70 years old, playing Coachella, looking ripped as shit, I guess.
I'm just saying, like, science is crazy, man. Like, what you can do now. Like I said, now, if you wouldn't mind, Google Danny Elfman Oscars 2005. You'll see what I mean.
I mean, Iggy Pop looks like that, too, and he's in his 70s. Yeah, he just looks like a normal dude.
Normal
looks
guy.
Like he's having fun.
Yeah, like, well, Iggy Pop's always been that way, though. Like, I can remember I read this book. Many people who were influenced by this book will probably recognize immediately what I'm talking about, but there's like an oral history of punk rock in the U.S. called "Please Kill Me."
Yeah, I've got a copy of that.
Yeah, and Iggy Pop talks about, like, even when he was fully on like every drug known to man, he would get up and swim laps in the pool at his house in Los Angeles. Like, he was always into fitness, regardless. And so, drugs and alcohol notwithstanding, he's always been in insane shape, and like that's his sort of release, I guess.
I mean, drugs and alcohol and being in shape, that sounds like most people in the military.
Yeah, no kidding. But I mean, you could look at Danny Elfman and be like, okay, Danny Elfman doesn't strike me as a person who was doing all the working out his major muscle groups every day, in 2005. But now my man is gigantic.
Yeah, he's and just looking at he looks like just a normal old man in 2005, and then you skip forward to like 17 years later, and he's jacked as shit with his long hair, looking cool as hell. Good on him. It's not going to be me. I like to exercise 3 times a week for roughly an hour, but I'm also not Danny Elfman. I don't have a. I didn't do the score to Corpse Bride, so who am I? I've got a podcast.
I didn't write the Simpsons theme.
Right.
I didn't write the song "Dead Man's Party." I was gonna say though, I'm not quite Danny Elfman tier, and I don't think I ever want to be. But
look, one day Honkball's gonna really take off, and you guys will be up there.
No, what I mean is I've been working out a lot more this year than I have in previous years, and I think the combination with diet and the exercise I'm doing has actually started to make a pretty big difference compared to where I had been at basically more or less for about the last 6 years. And I'm not going to lie, it's kind of addictive to be like, oh, well, I keep doing these things and I keep seeing progress, and I keep getting stronger. I keep going to do more stuff. And you can see how, especially if you're someone who was already working out and felt like they weren't making any progress, when it suddenly clicks and you are doing better, like you are actually, visibly making progress, how insanely addictive it could possibly get to be like, no, I can just become fully Patrick Bateman and go out of my goddamn mind.
I could do 1,000 crunches right now. That's fine.
The kind of thing where you find yourself being like, oh yeah, I work out a manageable amount. I wake up and I do an hour of cardio and lift weights for an hour 7 days a week.
That's 2 hours a day already.
Yeah, it's insane. I know. I mean, I know people who do that.
Those people do not have a 7-year-old like I do.
Well, they typically actually, the ones who have kids, they just get up at 4 and do it then. They basically trade off with their spouse. So sort of spouse does kid duty while they're doing 2 hours of insane exercise time, and then they trade off. But yeah, man, seriously, they figured out the only time they can really put in that much exercise is before kid wakes up. So they just go for it.
I'm not waking up. Look, I already have to wake up at 6:30 in the morning. I'm not going to start waking up at 4. I will just, look, on Wednesdays, the kid does Taekwondo at the gym. I exercise then. And then 2 other times during the week, I get in. I did a 3-mile run yesterday. That's good. I'm of an age where I don't, I'm perfectly fine not looking like Danny Elfman in 2002. I'm fine looking like Danny Elfman in 2005. And you know what, Danny Elfman in 2005, he looked good. He looked, in shape. He wasn't, he didn't look overweight, but he wasn't also ripped as shit. So, also, if somebody wants to hire me a personal trainer to do all of this for me, then maybe I'll do it. But that seems like a lot of time and effort and money that I don't want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's an extent to which it's a question of your priorities. And I think for me,
I told you I thought about making a cameo for just doing dad, videos of a dad who's proud of you. But I worry that I don't look the part of a dad well enough, because people want a portly guy in his 50s with a beard, and it's well, I'm 40 and in pretty good shape, and
you're nowhere near bald enough. Neither am I, really.
Yeah. So I don't know, but also maybe I remind people of their fathers when they were younger rather than their fathers currently, because I think that might, I don't know. Whatever dad issues you have, let me know what they are. That's going to help me to make money on Cameo. Telling you that I'm proud of you, because I am proud of you.
I saw this tweet one time when I was updating stuff on the Hell of a Way account, and then I lost it. I wasn't able to find it again, so I didn't make the comment. So I'll just do it now. Where I really felt as though it just clicked with me that this is the role that I have to play. It was some tweet where somebody had said it. It was probably 20, 21, 22-year-old woman saying this. Do you ever love somebody so much, or have you ever loved somebody so much that even if they don't want you back, you'd do anything to be in their life in any way that they'd let you? And my plan was to quote tweet this and say, hey, it's your dad. Just checking in. I'm proud of you. You should call your mom more often. Also, this is a very bad idea. Because if I've learned anything about relationships, when it's time to go, you just gotta go. You know what I mean? There's not really nothing when stuff is difficult and unpleasant. is probably not going to get much better if, let's just say, it hasn't advanced to the stage already where you could see an actual permanent future together. Like, all relationships are hard, all relationships have rough patches and difficult times. But like, if you're dating and you've never been married and you don't have a kid, you don't have anything, like if you're young and you're just dating and shit's hard all the time, like, I assure you, you are not obligated to suffer. You are not obligated to be miserable, and you are definitely not obligated to look at the entire, just multifaceted, wondrous, amazing, insane, nature of humanity and say, fuck all that. This square peg will fit in this round hole for the rest of my life. Do not do this. I'm just telling you, do not do this.
And the same goes for like any relationship. I have friends that I like. So I'm 20 years removed from high school, and we didn't have a 20-year reunion because it happened during COVID. And also I don't go to my reunions anyway. But there's one person that I knew from high school who I still talk to regularly. He and I are in a gaming group. We play D&D and RPGs and shit like that on Sunday nights. So he was telling me, it's like, oh yeah, this guy, added me to this Facebook group. They want to do a get together for our class in high school. I'm just like, I'm perfectly fine leaving all those. Like, I don't want to play the game of what have you been doing for the last 20 years of your life. And it's okay to have relationships that don't continue, especially if they're toxic. Like, and people change. Maybe somebody was great when you were in your 20s, but now you're in your 30s and you're like, I don't really want to be around this person anymore. Especially like when, like, you and I lived hard lives in our 20s, right? Like, we drank, we smoked, we were in the military, we probably hated ourselves at various points in time. But lack the moral fortitude to actually, do any kind of permanent damage to ourselves
or self-improvement for that matter.
Exactly. It was just alcoholism and depression. But then you hit your 30s and you meet better people and you grow yourself. And, like, Lord knows, I wouldn't be here without my wife. I'm sure you have the same thing with your wife. But there are still people who are in their late mid 30s who are still living those hard lives. You don't have to be around those people. Like, it's okay to just kind of cut ties with them and find other people. And you know what? Most of my friends live in the computer now. And I for a while, I was just like, I don't know how this really works from a sociological kind of perspective, where like I don't really see people very often, but I talk to you and Joe and Carrie like on a daily basis, even if it's just chat. And you know what? That seems to work. I feel fine with that. So make sure that your relationships are strong and that there's something that you enjoy being in. Because as soon as you don't enjoy being in that relationship, it's just going to keep dragging you down. So don't do that.
It's funny because I got added to a group on Facebook for 20th anniversary of my high school graduation, which will be next year. And I realized that we could have a 3-person London campus reunion if we wanted to, because 3 of the members of my graduating class that I'm friends with live here as well as me. But I don't know if you remember the Twitter account Trillballins.
Yeah, I do.
The guy, the mask parody, among other things. Mm-hmm. Incredible Twitter account. He's logged off since 2018. That's my friend from high school. I didn't know it was him. He was actually one of my best friends. I had no idea it was him until I got a DM from him one day, and he was like, "Yo, man, it's me from Carmel."
Indiana really puts out a lot of really great shit posters, apparently.
I mean, what was the Kurt Vonnegut quote about, I don't know what a Hoosier is, how you define a Hoosier or, somebody from Indiana, but everywhere I go in the world, it seems like, people from Indiana are there doing something interesting. What he actually said was probably a lot more sinister and cynical than that, but like that was more or less the quote. That was like, yes, there's a lot of really, really interesting people doing really interesting things who are from Indiana, and they get the fuck out.
Yeah, well, it's the quote is, I don't know what it is about Hoosiers, but wherever you go, there's always a Hoosier doing something important there. And if Kurt Vonnegut said that in St. Louis, we'd run him out of town. Because
right.
The Hoosiers, you fucking Hoosiers showed up like a bunch of scabs.
Well, the thing that's funny, though, is my friend, who I won't name, like I said, we were really, really good friends, junior and senior year of high school. When I realized it was him, it made so much sense because even in high school, like his personality was such that the way he joked, the way he found what he found funny, how he went about telling jokes, like the way he could kind of like command a room and not feel self-conscious, even being really stupid. It didn't surprise me at all that he would just be a total natural on Twitter. And when you think about it, like he kind of defined a lot of the way people go about making stupid jokes and parodies on that site. Like he was back when like having 50,000 followers was a huge deal. I'm kind of fanboying for my friend, but it's very funny. From what I can tell, he got off Twitter when his daughter was born and he just isn't on it anymore. And I'm like, man, nothing makes me prouder. Nothing makes me happier. Nothing on this fucking planet makes me happier than you were like, yeah, I'm at my peak. Bye.
I mean, and again, like the way that things change, there's really not a space for that anymore. Like Twitter has kind of sadly moved on from that. I see a couple people try to resurrect there's this in Matrix, the cash is king kind of thing that I see people try. But there was something special about like 2013 up to about 2020. Those irony boy years and then the Trump years. And then after that, it's just a lot of scolding, which is kind of irritating. And that's why all I do is post dad content now.
Yeah. I'm not going to say that I necessarily loved everything about Twitter back in those days. And in the Halcyon era, you can definitely say there was still a lot of, like all of the Gamergate shit was happening then. Like there was a lot of really bad, sort of behavior, abuse, etc. But like, I don't recall logging into Twitter and being told that like, eating wheat bread was problematic white privilege. And so
going to a restaurant is bougie, but also eating at home is bougie.
It's ableist to expect writers to read books. God. There's so many good ones. Oh my God. Like the thing is that like that those are all said from what I can tell in seriousness, and they're actually genuinely very, very funny if you thought of them as a parody, but they're not. And it's like I'm not going to go so far as to say that there's any such thing as being truly uncancelable, but obviously like you saw it happen where that one bullshit podcast very blatantly ripped passages from Jonathan Katz's books. And I'm not going to use the term that I want to use for their fans. There's two terms actually I want to use for their fans, but I won't use them. But their supporters really went ride or die for the idea of like, I refuse to understand what plagiarism is, and I'm just going to yell at you nonstop until, I say that I've won the argument. And you realize that like, that's basically the being uncancelable in a way. Like you have to do something so reprehensible that people would feel like that there's like beyond like a narrow sort of band of people who are really into complaining about this sort of stuff online, that people would know about you as like, I'll give you an example. I don't think that Dr. Pizza guy can ever be a tech journalist once he gets out of prison for the fucked up shit he did. Like he was a verified account. I think he wrote for like Boing Boing or like Science Direct or things along those lines, or Science Daily. He was absolutely like a science tech journalist. And then he got caught in an FBI sting for trying to set up. I'm not gonna describe it because it's too gross, but you can get what I'm hinting at, and it definitely involved minors. And so, like, I think he was a British dude in America. Like, eventually, when he does his federal prison sentence, if he's not doing it already, when he's done, he'll get deported back to Britain. I don't think that guy can ever be a science journalist or like a tech reporter ever again. You know what I mean? Like, that's being like in terms of being canceled in the sense that like your name is mud, like you will not be granted an audience. Like you have to do something really reprehensible, and it's
a thing that will never happen and it doesn't matter. But the ridiculous stuff like that. Although I was told the other day that me having dinner with possible racist people in the army is the same as me having dinner with an SS Waffen guy. So I don't know. Like we are certainly cancelable to a certain sect of people who already don't like us anyway. So fuck it, I don't care.
Right, but I mean, I think the thing about it is that whether or not like you are sort of banished from being considered one of the good ones from within a subset of social media users is different than like Patreon cancels your fucking account because you can't have a show anymore because you did something so fucked up you violated their TOS hardcore. You know what I mean? Like there's an extent to which it It really. I mean, do you remember when you tried to? Was it? I want to say it was a show we are friends with, and I won't name them because I don't want them to feel like we're putting them on blast. But someone shared one of our ads for the early days for like the patches, or like early days when we were doing ads for the show on Facebook, into their user like Facebook group. And a bunch of them got really mad that there was a leftist troop podcast, so they reported our show's ads saying that we were selling weapons on Facebook, and got them shut down. That's I mean, all right, you do you, whatever. But that kind of thing can happen, but that's not the same thing as like, Patreon has listened to your show and we've decided you're too cringe and now you're getting canceled forever. Like, and then you can't have a Patreon podcast anymore.
Okay, we'll go to OnlyFans.
Oh God, dude, I don't even want to think about that. Like, I mean, being on Cameo would be very funny, but I also just I despise the sound of my own voice, and I really don't want to see my own face on camera. So, like, yeah, not gonna happen.
I don't know if you have to. Like, I think you just shoot the video and send it. Like, you probably don't have to do like all the cameos I've seen. It's just somebody doing the front-facing camera on their phone and saying some stuff and then sending it off. And I mean, I would think that you'd be used to it. You listen to your own voice constantly.
I mean, I've gotten used to it. Doesn't mean I necessarily like it. Yeah, I mean,
I think you have a great voice, Nate.
Oh, thanks. One time, one of those dudes who was really into, well, the super black pilled kind of like kill yourself troops accounts. I remember there was they got into it right around this time last year with the stuff that happened in Afghanistan, and got into it with Alice, got into it with Sarah from It Came From the Sea, and I can't remember what I said, but the guy responded to Alice and me talking with, "Oh wow, the deepest voice on the podcast talks to the highest voice on the podcast," trying to insult Alice and insult me, and I was just sort of like, okay, but I mean, like my voice is my fucking voice, man. Like, would you? At this point, I spend hours every week listening to it. Like, I have to, so I have money. Like,
right? Who do you think you're owning here?
Right, and it was just one of those reminders that, like, yeah, there's an extent to which this could make you self-conscious if you, like, the table stakes for being involved in this stuff in the first place weren't the fact that, like, you've got to be out there in public being yourself, talking, sort of performing as yourself all the time in order to have, a show that has an audience, has a listenership, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, I'm not going to say that I love the sound of my voice. I'm not going to say that when I listen to it, I'm like, hell yeah. Like, I really have no complaints about how that sounds.
Next to James Earl Jones right here.
Right. But at the end of it all, I either get over it or I freak out and I stop fucking doing what I do for a living. So, you know what?
Right. I am not so concerned about cringe that I would fuck up my own bag.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think that whether or not you sort of reach a certain thing where people feel as though they're kind of like patting themselves on the back for having good taste when they recommend your show, or if you just stay a kind of thing that a small niche of people listen to regularly, you can't really control that. And I think both you and I are way too old to ever bank on that. You know what I mean? In the sense of it being like, hey, I got to do this show, and because I'll eventually become a superstar. Like nobody really can predict what's going to be popular and what's not. Like, I have no way of knowing why Trash Future became popular. Like, I think the combination works, and I think that I recognized that there was promise in that show the first time I heard them, and I definitely wanted to be involved. And I definitely was like, if this show just didn't sound so much like shit because of bad audio quality, I think it would have a much bigger platform. But, like, people have asked me, hey, like, how did you guys do it? And I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think it's the combination. I think it's the time period. I think it's like podcasts have, like, as a form of entertainment, have developed and matured a lot. I mean, they've been around for a long time, but like have continued to develop, and the technologies to distribute them have, like, we have improved rapidly. We've really kind of like been in the right place at the right time. But if I cared about whether or not people thought I was cool, particularly people like way younger than me thought I was cool, like if that was an actual concern that I had, I don't know if I could do what I'm doing because I would just be so neurotic that I have to learn how to use the word chuggy or whatever its like 2022 equivalent is. I'd have to be watching TikTok and actually giving a fuck about it. Like, and I recognize that at a certain point, I'm going to be like my dad. My references are going to be dated as hell. Like, I'm not going to keep up with stuff. Like, there's going to be no point.
Nobody wants to hear your old ass saying chuggy anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing. And nobody wants to see my fucking old ass on TikTok either, right?
Like maybe TikTok's just irritating, but I understand that it's and I tried TikTok for a little bit, and there's too much stuff in production and everything that goes into it, and also I don't want to watch TikTok videos, so I don't want to have to learn from them. What I am trying to do is I have an 18-year-old nephew who's got a couple of friends, and I'm wanting to like just kind of figure out like what the hell is it that you guys want right now? Like, entertainment wise, what do you got? What are the kids into? And not necessarily so that I can, that we can market our podcast to an 18-year-old, because I don't even know if they fucking listen to podcasts. The podcast might be an our generation thing. Like once, fucking 40 years in the future, you and I die our last dying gasps, saying, be sure to like and subscribe to the Patreon, we'll be the last ones or something. I don't even know if the kids really want to do podcasts, but I am interested, like, what is it that you do want? Is that something that, I can provide, or maybe, I don't know. Like, another thing I wanted to do, and if I fucking had time, I've got a regular job, so I never have time for anything, but, I wanted to, like, because, not born in the 90s, born in 2003 or something at this point. And just have him and his friends sit down and watch like Seven, or watch Blade, watch all these movies from the 90s that like we really loved, and then just be like, what do you guys think about this fucked up shit that we used to watch? And then maybe they can make me watch whatever it is. Well, I know what movies they watch these days because I mean I don't watch them, but I know what the movies that are coming out are. But I don't really know what. The current generation, the current crop of teenagers are not experiencing life the same way we are. And I'm just like curious as to how they are experiencing it. Are you just on TikTok all the time? Is it just you? Because I remember it was YouTube for a long time, and now it's TikTok. So
I can imagine teens these days just being like, yeah, I mean, I kind of like podcasts, but the ones I like they're not recorded and produced. They're actually just delivered live in the voice chat of my favorite racist anime Discord, and it's just like, well, whatever floats your boat, man. Honestly, whatever works. Like maybe that's how.
He's too good of a kid to be a channer. Like he's a bit of a nerd, so I'm not too worried about that. But he also
as we know, nerds will never be problematic ever. There's never been any. This is an absolutely true statement.
I need to take him under my wing so he doesn't become cringe. I don't care if he becomes cringe. Be cringe all you want, but just don't be problematic.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird, man. I have no idea how, like, what an average teenage kid's media, like, usage, what that looks like. I mean, when you think about it, Twitter just feels like the forums, but faster, and everybody's on one forum. And, I mean, if you remember when Twitter first came out, it was difficult to share images. It was the app didn't load images automatically. You had to like click through. You couldn't share video at all. It wasn't as visual, and now it is. And but when you think about what the forums were like with image hosting and the jokes and the memes and shit, like it just feels like it's still a permutation of the thing that we were doing in 2003. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I presume you were on forums in 2003.
Kind of.
I was on forums in 2003.
Yeah, I was not on. I wasn't a goon or anything like that, but I had my own places that I ran around.
You were on collegehumor.com?
No, I was actually on. There's a local board called Zombie Squad that was a local kind of survivalist, but also they did a lot of community service stuff, like survivalist, but not in like weird, gross ways. But not like you got to hoard gold in your basements, but just in a hey, like here's how to put together a first aid kit. Here's how to stuff like that.
When survivalists overlap with like geocachers and fucking
kind of like, a bunch of survivalists racers who also play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, like I said, like if it's into like adventure racing or hiking and stuff, that kind of survivalist is cool. When it's like overlaps with Nazi shit, then no, it's bad.
Right. Like they talked about guns a little bit, but that was not like the main thing. It's not like we have to constantly litigate whether an AK or an AR is better because a lot of them would just be like, you just need like a little 22, man. That's fine. Just get yourself get yourself a Ruger 1022 and you'll be good to go. You know, they were never, on the whole, they weren't weird with it. Now they got a little weird the more popular they got. I don't know if they're still around, but yeah, those are the forums I ran around on.
Yeah, I mean, I just was on. I was just laughing at the idea of you like coordinating your shift at it's Sonic Drive-In, so you could be home in time to watch the newest Homestar Runner cartoon that got put out on Flash.
I didn't work at Sonic, but yes, I was running home to watch the latest Homestar. Dude, I had the cheat that was shipped to me in Afghanistan, which I had it's 2004, so that was the height of Homestar Runner. And God, now we're really starting to sound old.
I was going to say, man,
up.
that genuinely feels like I've opened up the fucking sarcophagus at Chernobyl and I'm just having my face dissolved.
Yeah, the Homestar Runner is our elephant's foot. It's just the closer we get to it, the more our bodies are just going to disappear and fall apart.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely was a sort of like, call it, more innocent, more sort of like wackiness for wackiness' sake kind of mentality in those things, the sort of Web 1.0 stuff. I don't know. I look back. I'm fleshing out a point by just sort of talking out loud with you, but I do think that even the way you use Facebook, Twitter, etc. I think Twitter in particular, because Facebook is supposed to be kind of predicated on personal connections, and Instagram is solely visual with some, with comments beneath it. I really do feel like Twitter in a way it's just sort of the forums, but faster and bigger. And so when you think about stuff like TikTok, you think about Discords and things along those lines, like those kinds of communities. Well, not Discord as much, because Discord is just like basically super IRC, but TikTok, I think in particular, is something that's solely video. Like, it's just different than anything we grew up with. And so our ability to relate to it, I mean, some people do, so like old people do fucking weird outsider art on TikTok, don't get me wrong. But yeah, man, I don't think I'd ever understand it. And I think at best I let younger friends send me TikToks that they think are funny that have been ported to either Instagram or Twitter. And I just don't care. Like, I'll never download the app. I'll never make an account. I don't care.
My wife's friends, they're all in their late 30s, early 40s. You know, they send, like, my wife doesn't really do TikTok. She's more of Instagram, but like her friends do TikTok. So TikTok is kind of, there are, much like Twitter, there are different like sects inside of it that are for these various people, which I think is a really interesting, I think that's a smart idea for people on TikTok. It's like, yeah, it can be for people in their 40s. It's watching videos. It's not something, it's not some crazy like, oh, you've got to do some wacky shit. Like, it's not a brand new idea. We had Vine and we have YouTube. TikTok is just something that is a little easier to do editing directly on your phone. So I understand why people are into it, but I'm with you. I am not into it. I don't like it. I don't like jump cuts. I don't like people screaming at a camera.
I think it's hilarious. I think it's really good. It's just not for me. Like, I'm just not going to be making content on it. I think the TikTok text-to-speech auto voice is very funny. There's just something inherently funny about it to me. I think a lot of the jump cut stuff is actually very well done. I think it's good. TikToks are genuinely very, very funny. It's just, it'll never be for me because, quite frankly, that's a lot of work. And
I don't like listening to videos either.
I don't either, man. I really don't. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's just a brain disconnect.
I saw that like now, the current internet generation that's coming up is more into video, which is why the internet, like when I try to look something up, it's very irritating because it's like, oh, you want to learn how to do that? Watch this like 6-minute video. I'm like, no, give me the WikiHow that I can flip through to get to exactly what I need.
Give me the WikiHow for how to use a condom with really fucked up artwork that just genuinely has like this otherworldliness aspect to it, with a dog that just looks like a sinister creature that's somehow dog related but not really.
The man pointing to himself in the mirror. Give me that.
Yes, exactly. I do not want to watch a video. God, I mean, I could go. We could make this a 2-hour dad chat. I could talk about, if you want, tutorials for using Adobe Creative Cloud, like
Oh
all the different
God.
programs. And it's like, wow, this person definitely knows what they're doing in terms of how to make this change or this process you want. But English is their 14th language, and their microphone sucks.
Yeah,
Like,
what is it? What is it about every Photoshop tutorial being done in Bulgaria?
yeah, fucking. Oh my God, it kills me so much.
Yeah, it's like there's a Bulgarian sweatshop of Adobe content makers, and no, like you said, no hate on them. They're doing it correctly, but it's also like it's hard to follow along with my old ears, you know.
We got a YouTube Academy here in the Netherlands, so we have to Photoshop out a lot of blackface on a regular basis.
We're gonna show you. We're gonna show you how to apply a negative exposure to just a face to turn a black face to a white face again.
I was gonna say, yeah, exactly. We have to, all those people that look like they're wearing white clown makeup were photoshopped to fucking Svarta Pete.
Yeah, it's not a mime get together. I promise you, it was just a really racist photo we had to fix.
So, Francis, you recorded a bonus that's going to be out by the time this comes out. So, could you introduce it?
It's also a random us just randomly talking about shit. It was going to be about this dude who hired a prostitute as like a consultant, so that he could always have a prostitute near him. But unfortunately, before we got to that, we just bullshitted the entire way, kind of like we did with this episode. So if you're really looking into just some dudes hanging out and being chill, this bonus episode is going to be just up your alley, just along with this one as well.
I see like dudes like wandering around like in their fucking crotch rockets with like flip flops on. I'm like, I don't know, man. That seems like it's gonna be a bad time.
Yeah, my brother's always been a motorcycle guy, and he was always a Harley guy too. And like since he moved out, he's owned motorcycles, and he laid his bike down one time. He was stationed in DC for a while because he was part of the old guard, and he's driving back to St. Louis on his motorcycle and laid the bike down. But like he's always been. I wear leathers. He wears boots. He wears the helmet. Like he doesn't fuck around with that, and he, as far as I know, never has done that. So he laid it down and walked away from it. But also, it's just like, a car doesn't do that. Like not to say that a car doesn't get into accidents, but a car doesn't, like, the wheels don't slip out from underneath the car and then you're sliding on the highway at 70 miles an hour,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not great. Especially like I'm admittedly not the best at wearing all of my gear, especially like when I was living in Hawaii. It's too fucking hot.
Yeah.
It sucks. Like I love riding motorcycles, and I'm sure at one point the goddamn things will kill me. Especially here, where traffic laws aren't even a vibe; they're like frowned upon.
You got all kinds of things that'll kill you out there now. It's exciting.
Yeah,
Like,
well,
no more worrying about a ball getting shot up, but you do have to worry about like a sudden invasion, I suppose.
Yeah, another one, unfortunately. It like traffic is, well, mostly in the capital of Yerevan. There's just so many cars, more than the roads were designed for. Like pretty much anywhere, right? We need less of them. And
Speaking of, what car did you get?
I don't have one yet.
Okay.
I'm
So
buying one is a real motherfucker here, but hopefully I'll have one soon. Not like, because I don't plan on driving it every day. I'm not adding to the congestion in town, but it is nice to have for errands, like to go grocery shopping, or
You don't have like a guy that, like a local guy that's, I'm crazy Blizanin. Come on down and get yourself a brand new Lotta.
yeah, I was gonna say,
what
Joe,
name was that?
Blizanin?
have you been able to put a car into H yet? I think that's really what we're all curious about.
There's buying a car here is kind of a pain in the ass. There's mostly it's private sales. Like there's no dealerships. Well, there's a couple, but it's mostly just like a front office, and they import the car for you, which is like always really shady.
So it's Florida. All right,
Yeah.
cool. Solid.
And like even buying a car secondhand is quite shady here. Like because if depending on the car you have, like you take it to your local mechanic, he's very reliable, but also your mechanic can't exactly get the right parts for whatever car, but like he'll get parts that will work. So like the car that has 100,000 kilometers on it looks really good, runs really well, but it's like a fucking cannibalized nightmare under the hood. So like when you're buying something, you take it to a mechanic that you trust, because everything here works on like I know a guy. Like if you look up businesses like on Google or whatever, almost nothing shows up. Everything is still on Facebook, or it's word of mouth.
Are there Yelp reviews?
No.
No Yelp. There's no Yelp in Armenia.
No.
I want to read some of the reviews for the Joker Bar in Yerevan.
It's quite popular still. I walked past it the other day, and there's tons of people in it. It's just still endlessly funny to me that the Joker.
Have you
Bar
gone
exists.
in it yet?
No. I have.
No, he's
for the podcast.
He's already a part owner.
Part owner. Pff, I bought the building. No, I wish that's going to be my if the Patreon gets up to like another $10,000, I'll try to buy it because real estate here is insanely expensive now. Thanks to all the Russians. But